What's actually healthy despite most people thinking it's not? Story 1. It is really healthy to process some emotions and thoughts on your own. I know I'm on Reddit saying that, so that's likely an unpopular opinion, but the people who have the most peace and clarity are people who can sort, experience, sit in, and evaluate their feelings without having to put it out to other people for other people to tell them what to think, feel, and do. Answer. My journey seems to be almost exactly the opposite of yours. In my younger days, I was far more introspective, but over time, I've learned how much the simple act of talking about my feelings with my wife or with trusted friends or family can help clarify my feelings. My friends and family are able to provide support and much-needed reality checks as necessary, and it's often necessary, but the benefit also comes from the very act of discussing it. I've also learned that often when I try to process emotions on my own, I'm apt to ruminate and fall into unhealthy patterns. I guess I just question how healthy it is to sit around thinking about myself too much. It never seems to turn out that well for me, and turns me into a more lonely, self-absorbed, and ultimately selfish person. Story 2. Put baby on the floor. Babies don't always need to be in a bouncer, swing, jumper, walker, rocker, chair, etc. They do great on the floor in a safe space. Answer. My 3-month-old actively demands being on the floor. He will squirm and moan until he's placed on his yoga mat and can start doing his workout. He started with moving only his left leg, then the right one, and then the arms. By now, he's training his core muscles, trying to sit up and turn from one side to another. It's like a built-in training program he knows he has to follow, and he gets really stressed out if he can't get his exercise in. Story 3. Frozen vegetables. It's seen as cheap and not as good as fresh, when in fact it's almost always healthier than fresh vegetables. Answer. This is something that has changed over time. Frozen vegetables used to be worse than fresh vegetables because they were slowly frozen, which degraded them. But these days, the vegetables are snap frozen, which preserves them in a much better state. Personally, most of the vegetables that I eat these days are frozen. It is just so much more convenient to have a freezer full of frozen vegetables that I know will last for months over having to constantly buy fresh vegetables and being forced to use them before they go bad, even if they don't go with what I plan to cook. Story 4. Sleeping all day when you're exhausted. As my trainer says, if you're actually falling asleep, you clearly needed it. Story 5. Being around dirt, especially for kids. Exposure to a natural, somewhat dirty environment helps your immune system develop properly, which in turn helps reduce the chance of developing allergies or immune system diseases, and even reduces some mental health issues. Citation. Story 6. Popcorn. Without all the artificial butter flavorings and low-quality oils, of course, popcorn is a whole grain and super high in fiber. As far as snacks go, it's about as good as it gets. Answer. This is a good one. In addition to the fiber, if you get popcorn that isn't soaked in butter, it's also very high volume for the amount of calories. If you measure out something like Smart Pop popcorn compared with regular chips, you can eat way more of the popcorn for the same calories. Edit. Some people are trying to argue about the butter and claiming it's healthy and that we shouldn't avoid fats. I'm not here to debate whether or not butter is healthy, and I 100% agree with not avoiding fats because we need them to survive. However, 95% of people are getting enough fats from their diets. And more is not better. Fats are very calorically dense, and in the context of a snack being eating in addition to meals, more just becomes excess calories, more likely to put you in a caloric surplus, which will make you fat in any form. If you want to snack on something that's going to put you at less risk of a caloric surplus, Lower-fat popcorn is a way to do that because of the volume and time it will take you to eat the same calories as chips or popcorn that does have a lot of butter added. However, if you can afford the extra calories, go ahead and add the butter. Obesity statistics suggest that. This isn't the case for most people, though. Story 7. Being angry. It's as valid an emotion as any, and sometimes you just need to be angry and let it out. Reacting in anger is never a good thing, though. Answer. Being angry over things like injustices is good. Unfortunately, anger is one of those things that many people take way too far. Many people, often men, find the anger is the only emotion that they are able to express, and so they embrace and express it way too often. Being angry about child hunger, good. Being angry about a mean thing your friend did, healthy. Being angry about having to press an extra button for English at the ATM, not so healthy. Being so angry about little things that you spend your life ranting and grumping multiple times a day, unhealthy. Story 8. Having fat in your body, not an excessive amount though, but you don't need to be ripped with a completely flat stomach to be healthy. Story 9. Salt. It's been demonized by the health industry for years, but it is wildly necessary for darn near everything in your body. Story 10. I think the takeaway here is everything in moderation, and that is just annoying to hear as an adult as it was in PE when they hammered it into my head. Story 11. Saying no to children and letting them feel sadness sometimes so they can appreciate joy eventually. My mother-in-law, grandchildren are so spoiled that nothing can make them happy. They are completely self-absorbed and never say a thank you. They can get absolutely anything they want anytime. I've never seen children like that, and I believe while she has good intentions, this might be harmful later. Story 12. To a certain degree, fat. There was a misunderstanding that if there's fat in your food and drink, then it will go straight to your waist if you eat it. Not true. This gave birth to all these low-fat foods where they took the fat out and replaced it with sugar, which the body will just convert to fat. So they replaced the sugar with sugar substitute, which again just primes your body to absorb any real sugars you do eat and turn them to fat. Yeah, it's true there are good and bad fats, but you're generally better off eating the food with fats than any of the low-fat alternatives. Story 13. Giving your body a chance to fight off minor illnesses before turning immediately to antibiotics, virals. Like, no, don't let that dog bite fester your arm right off your shoulder. But if you can walk through the sinus infection with a bottle of NyQuil, do that. Story 14. Emotions. Not that people don't find them healthy, I guess, but they don't normalize and acknowledge emotions, and it can lead to being more unhealthy than talking to expressing emotions. Story 15. Silence, just silence. Take it in, relax, give your ears a well-deserved rest. But fudge you if you suffer from tinnitus. No rest for you. Story 16. Have sympathy for others. Just because someone needs the help an extra leg up doesn't mean you are being taken advantage of. Story 17. Full-fat Greek-style yogurt. Better nutrition, it will leave you feeling replete if you have it for breakfast with a few berries. You won't fancy a biscuit for 11s. Story 18. A well-balanced burger. Fats, protein, carbs, some vitamins and fiber from salad bits, especially at home so you can control the amount of oil, etc. The issue is more than people have the burger, and then 1,000 kcal in fries, a 600 kcal milkshake, and some garlic sticks as well. Story 19. It depends. Broadly claiming something healthy lacks the nuance that things do not exist in a vacuum. The dose matters, and some things are beneficial in some contexts: age groups, disease-free status, diets, and not others. Comparison group also matters. Like an oil might have positive properties, but give off carcinogenic compounds if used at extremely high heats. IDK, I'm overthinking it. Answer: I don't think you're overthinking it. It's the right mindset to have towards basically everything. The top comment, ATM from Youthy Original Retro, quotes, "Playing outside and touching dirt" for kids, which is spot on and backed up by science. At the same time, we're seeing people take this concept to the extreme by not vaxing their kids, making them drink raw milk, and so on. Nuance is everything, which is kinda ironic as a statement. Story 20. Eating lots of eggs. I was helping my mom develop a post-heart bypass diet a couple of years back, and I was amazed at how dietary advice on eggs had changed. As I recall, the USDA recommendation, which had suggested very limited egg consumption, was entirely dropped in lieu of a consumption cap on saturated fat, which technically would allow a dozen eggs per day. Similarly, the AHA had relaxed its recommendation to up to an egg per day while recognizing that that was a conservative reading of the most recent meta-analysis of dietary cholesterol consumption studies, which IIRC showed no correlation between dietary and blood cholesterol for up to 1 egg per day, weak correlation for 1-2 eggs per day, and no correlation above 2 eggs per day. So she enjoys consumption of eggs, but alas, doesn't get bacon with them. Story 21. GMOs. We've been genetically modifying crops and animals slowly over years by selective breeding to omit unfavorable traits and promote favorable ones. Story 22. Cutting off your entire family if they aren't good people. I never knew my life could be so stable and drama-free, and it's going on almost 5 years now. Story 23. Bread. But not bread made in factories and using grains that have been ultra-processed. We need to return to the old-school, time-consuming way of producing bread. Story 24. MSG. It was a literal smear campaign motivated by racism. Got so ingrained that tons of people think they are bad and have no idea why. Story 25. Soy. People seized on one case study and parlayed that the word soy, a cultural political commentary. Story 26. Hamburgers. At least when they're homemade. Coffee. In moderation. Staying up late and getting up late if you're a night owl. Plotting revenge, but not going through with it. Taking your glasses off when you don't need them. Lying in bed a lot, at least compared to sitting a lot. Story 27. This should be renamed to What Do You Think Is Healthy? Because most of the people in here have no idea what they're talking about. Story 28. Self-care. Holy shoot, the neo-puritanical, pseudo-scientific bunk the last few years outright shaming people for even an iota of intimacy, exploration, or release, like an 1800s man finding a woman's exposed ankle, scandalous is disgraceful. There is no shame in this if it's in the privacy of your home, and you are unwinding after a long day, as long as your job and livelihood aren't impacted, and you aren't breaking public decency laws. Go for it. Shoot like NoFap and other stuff, like it isn't just damaging, it's regressive as shoot, and turns you into a puritanical weirdo. Story 29. In this thread, people trying to justify foods as healthy and unhealthy. There's no such thing. Eat in moderation. That's it. In the words of Michael Pollan, eat food. Not too much. Mostly plants. Story 30. Chocolate. The right kind. Dark chocolate with 80 or more cocoa has massive amounts of extremely healthy stuff in it. It makes your body release stem cells in the blood, which repair about almost everything. Story 31. Atheism. Not saying that spirituality or religion are bad on their own, and I have no problem with people that are pious, but a lot of religious people and institutions act as though not having a religion somehow will ruin every aspect of your life, make you miserable, make you an immoral law-breaking person, make you a horrible jerk, and so on. But almost every atheist person I've met feels more free, feels less restricted and afraid, is part of a community that is more loving and judges them less, and so on. Story 32. Diet soda instead of full sugar soda. Almost all of the studies I've read about any correlation between artificial sweeteners, specifically the ones in diet sodas, is pretty dubious. Obviously, water is better, but the idea that a Coca-Cola is healthier than a Diet Coke is plainly incorrect. Story 33. Not showering every day. You can wash sensitive spots every day, though, if you want to. That's understandable. Answer. As a kid in elementary school, I had some kind of very dry skin, and a dermatologist actually prescribed me to not shower or bathe for a month. I thought that's insane. But I was a prepubescent kid and I didn't stink. My skin healed perfectly and no one ever noticed anything. Now, post-puberty obviously is something different, but I absolutely agree that daily showers are not a thing that most people require for health or hygiene. Story 34. Despite rhetoric, there's numerous studies that show culling out toxic persons, including blocking toxic or argumentative people online, is incredibly healthy. The narrative that you're creating a personal echo chamber usually implies the accuser was foiled in trying to indoctrinate and/or gaslight you. If someone ever says this to you when you're kicking them out of your life, it is the most clear indicator they were trying to manipulate you. Plenty of studies on this one. Story 35. Giving me money. I don't think people realize how much better they'll feel about themselves once they try it. Story 36. Ignoring your phone for 2 days straight and not responding to anyone or scrolling through crap on social feeds. Story 37. Walking 30-60 minutes a day. Most people forget the benefits of walking. Some people who want to start doing exercise are preparing for jogging or going to gym instead of walking. Story 38. MSG. People hear it and assume that because it's a 3-letter initialism, it's unnatural and bad for you. It's not. I mean, it's not health-boosting, but it's not any more dangerous for you than table salt. And it's natural. Story 39. Getting some sun. While it leads to higher incidences of skin cancer, it actually leads to a lowered overall morbidity, dying of any reason. On the whole, it's good for you. Skin cancer is the usually easy-to-fix cancer. Story 40. Eating fat. Even setting aside the whole healthy versus unhealthy fats thing, fat is a critical nutrient. Even if you're trying to lose weight, foods containing moderate amounts of fat are a great way to lower your calorie intake if you struggle with hunger appetite. Story 41. Zero-calorie beverages. Contain less aspartame than a tomato. Taste good, no calories. Sure, don't drink a 12-pack in a day, but one a day is not gonna hurt you. They may prime your stomach for sweet foods, though, but if you're aware, you can mentally tackle that. Story 42. Eating dandelions. I guess people don't think they are unhealthy, but rather that people don't realize they are healthy, and some were even imported as food crops. Story 43. Tofu. I don't know where that fear of soy came from, but it's totally healthy. All the animals are fed soy, or a blend of soy and corn. Humans are totally fine eating tofu. I will admit, I get the organic tofu, because I did read that the non-organic is ridiculous high amount of pesticides. That may or may not be true. I figure it's the same darn price at Costco. I might as well get the pesticide-free one. Story 44. Seed oils. American Cattle Ranchers Association propaganda has people thinking saturated fats are healthier these days. Story 45. Beer in the medieval times. They were only lightly alcoholic, and the brewing process would help eliminate a lot of bacteria, which is pretty good when you're otherwise drinking well water that mixes with chute water. Story 46. Sunshine. We all need some amount of sunshine. We don't want to burn our skin or eyes, but we do need to have sunshine to stay healthy. Story 47. Good complex carbs are beneficial. Obviously, moderation is key with anything, but no need to cut carbs from your diet. Story 48. Potatoes and rice, wheat, and bread. Carbs have been demonized, and everyone all the self-appointed YouTube doctors will tell you to go low carb, keto, etc. They assume everyone is non-vegetarian and recommend tons of meat, aren't aware of other cuisines or the existence of lentils beans. Meanwhile, everyone else in the world outside NA happily eats carbs and is healthier. Story 49. Crying. A lot of people think it's a sign of weakness, but it's actually a healthy emotional release and a good way to process stress or grief. Story 50. Drinking straight olive oil. The high concentration of monounsaturated fats will prevent heart attacks. Story 51. Defiance in children. It shows they're capable of creating individual thoughts and ideas, to a certain degree, of course. Story 52. Seeking help for mental health. Most people think it's a last resort, and you only go to therapy when things are really bad, and that idea is really damaging. I have a friend with mental health issues, and the only time he's gone to therapy is when he's on the brink of unaliving. Even just reaching out to a friend or relative when you're a little down or anxious is enough to start the process of coping healthily. Story 53. Potatoes. They're surprisingly low-calorie, zero-fat, and contain lots of fiber, vitamin C, and potassium. Plus, in studies, they've been shown to be one of the most satiating foods. Story 54. Sleeping in a separate bed from your significant other. If they're a restless sleeper snorer and it keeps you up, it's not worth losing rest over. Story 55. This thread should be renamed, I think Instagram red-pilled me on something they don't want you to know about. Story 56. Resting every day. As a teenager, maybe this gets me labeled as lazy, but the only reason we are taught to be on a 24-hour grind and never rest is to benefit large companies with our labor. This even applies to school and working at home. I've been so prone to burnout just from my daily routine, and allowing myself to take breaks is the best thing I have ever done for my health. Story 57. Homemade pizza. Dough, tomatoes, cheese, and a couple of other toppings is basically one of the most balanced meals you can have. Story 58. Fruit. There are people out there, I work retail cashier, I know, that think fruit have too much sugar. I had a woman full-on believe this sentence. She said, "I'm being bad and getting a banana, it's my sugary treat." Be so real or an OMFG. Sugar isn't the enemy, people. Moderation and sugar. Our body can process easily is the key. Honey, maple syrup, sugar in fruit, and less processed, not bleached sugar is fine. Pure cane sugar is yummy. Your generic sugar has so much stuff in it. The less processed isn't bad since we need some of it, the better. Story 59. Fruit. Social media diet culture has people believing that strawberries and apples have too much sugar. Story 60. Being angry. It's a part of your emotions, and you get people that suppress or avoid it, then have a meltdown because they can't control it and get overwhelmed. Story 61. Anything can be healthy as long as there's not too much of it. I once was told to eat more sugar because I was lacking energy. Story 62. Sugar carbs. Sugar is the primary source of energy. There's nothing wrong with eating carbs if you live a healthy and active lifestyle. The problem is most people don't burn it off and let it turn into fat. That's unhealthy. If you do any kind of intensive or endurance exercise, you need enough carbs to perform at your highest possible level. Story 63. Allowing yourself to be salty and frustrated from time to time, that shows you that you actually care. Story 64. Brussels sprouts and bacon. Obviously, moderation is key with the bacon. Fry the bacon first. You can cook the Brussels sprouts in the fat left over in the cast iron and grind a bit of black pepper over the top. The key is not to overcook the Brussels sprouts. A little crispness is better than mushy. Excellent source of vitamins, fiber, antioxidants, and keeps you full for a while. Story 65. Squats. Many people think doing squats, or other leg exercises really, are bad for knees, or shouldn't be done if your knees hurt. Actually, they're excellent for strengthening the knee and improving knee pain. This is not true for those with actual injuries. Story 66. Sleeping more than 5 hours. It's not big or clever, nor are you a better worker or trying harder at your job if you go without sleep so that you can have it all or do it all. It's healthy to sleep enough, and 5 hours sleep a night is not enough for anyone. Pushing yourself to exercise when you absolutely dislike it and don't feel the benefit of it. If it's stressing you out, you're going to raise your cortisol levels to a harmful level, and this results in more harm over time and has its own risks. If you really dislike your exercise routine, find something you do like in order to exercise. Try anything new for at least 2 weeks before deciding if you dislike it enough to stop and look for something else. But putting up with anything you dislike and that causes you prolonged stress or anxiety is more likely to backfire than it is to help you. There are other ways to get your exercise in that don't require almost eliminate yourself and not feeling better for it. Story 67. Rice. Healthiest food in the world, the rice is healthy. The butter, oil, sausage, and bacon, and other calorie-dense crap you put on it is what's bad. Asians in Asia don't eat bacon cheeseburgers and pizza. Every day they eat rice and vegetables and fish, and look how lean and sexy they are. Only big cities where KFC and McDonald's has infiltrated will you see an overweight Asian in Asia. Story 68. You are supposed to feel bad sometimes. Bad things happen. You might be down about something sad. Great. Feel that. But, and here's the hard part for folks to understand, feeling bad doesn't mean there is something wrong with you and you have some sort of mental disorder and you're a special little guy. It is life. Embrace it, experience it, process it, and then you can move on. Story 69. Body fat. Today's beauty standards shame any visible fat, AMD, yet it's proven to have positive effects on the body and immune system in modest quantities. A healthy body is more nuanced than just fat bad. Story 70. Choking the chicken, beating off, slapping salami, hand-washing the thawed meat, discharging phallic mucus. Story 71. If you make it at home with simpler techniques, a burger is a fairly healthy and complete meal. A protein, multiple vegetables, a grain, and sometimes a dairy source as well. Get yourself some whole wheat buns, some veggies, lean beef, and maybe some cheddar. That's a whole meal. That's good food. That's some bread, steak, and a salad just stacked on top of each other. Story 72. Bananas. Some avoid bananas thinking they spike blood sugar excessively, but they have fiber, potassium, and help with digestion and muscle recovery. Story 73. Not showering every day, being dirty and building an immune system, carbs, not doing anything at all sometimes. Story 74. Being a little overweight, especially in middle age and above, and specifically for women. Being heavier makes you less frail. It keeps your bones strong, it gives you more energy reserves to weather illness and stress, and it helps produce estrogen post-menopause. Women who are slightly overweight live longer and healthier lives than those who have lower BMIs, provided that you are otherwise healthy, i.e., normal cholesterol and triglycerides, normal blood pressure, normal vitamin D and iron levels, normal thyroid function. It is perfectly healthy to be overweight. Story 75. If you're fairly young and in good health, avoid taking medicine, painkillers, and antibiotics for every minor ailment. Story 76. Salsa and pico de gallo. You can eat buckets of it, and although calorific and a bit salty, high-end corn chips are not that bad at all. Story 77. Carbs. LOL. Literally carbs. I have been around people that refuse to eat any carbs outside of their safe foods, etc. I understand that anything is bad in excess, and a lot of carbs can be processed, etc. Though, if you really want to have one cookie or a little bit of ice cream, then fine, it's fine. Jeez. Keto isn't the catch-all.